Superman, Creature Commandos, and Peacemaker were all critical successes. It's hard to look at those three and think that the new rebooted DC universe isn't off to an alright start. But those projects all shared one thing in common. They were all written by a new DC Studios co-CEO James Gunn. And if you watch any of the Guardians movies or the Suicide Squad, it should be no surprise that James Gunn can write a good screenplay. With that in mind, Supergirl feels like the first real test of the DC reboot. A good football coach requires an entirely different skill set than a tight end, so whether James Gunn could be a great CEO and help guide other filmmakers to success remained to be seen. Until now, with the arrival of the Craig Gillespie directed Supergirl movie. Until now, when I regret to inform you that the answer to whether we can trust James Gunn is no. 2026's Supergirl is an adaptation of the 2021 Tom King graphic novel Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and follows Kara Zor-El, the cousin of Superman, as she teams up with a young girl by the name of Eve Ridley. The two set out to exact vengeance against the mustache-swirling antagonist Krem of the Yellow Hills, who wronged them in numerous ways, the least of all being his terrible character design. A lot of DC fans were initially hyped because the graphic novel itself is a classic, but the hype seemed to take a hit when the first trailer dropped. The vibrant colors and eye-grabbing visual, which made the comic book a classic, were swapped out for the same dreary, washed-out visuals that has plagued every assembly line action blockbuster for almost a decade. Normally, this is the part where I would tell the fans that the source material shouldn't matter when judging how well this works as a movie. Normally, I would point to The Shining as an example of why a movie should be accepted on its own terms and not as an adaptation of a book. Yet this movie is desperately begging to be held up against the graphic novel, and that's why it fails so spectacularly. Because despite this being our first introduction to the Supergirl character, the first half of this movie invests no effort whatsoever in getting us to care or understand who this character is. 95% of the people who watch this have never picked up a Supergirl comic, and the first half of this movie gives them no indication as to who this character is, why she does what she does, and how she ended up where she is at the beginning of the movie. Instead, they slap the Supergirl logo on her, tell us she's Superman's cousin, and hope that somewhere along the way we'll enjoy the quippy one-liners enough to fool ourselves into believing this is a three-dimensional character. They say a superhero is only as good as their villain. That holds true for Supergirl, just not in the way you would hope. With the film delivering on an antagonist who is just as paper-thin and underdeveloped as the lead character. But while Kara herself is elevated by the sheer charisma and pathos that Millie Alcock brings to the character, the same cannot be said about Matthias Schoenaerts. He might be trying to come across as a Mad Max villain, but really he's the extra who gets fired for trying to steal the spotlight from Chris Hemsworth. I mean, seriously, the guy is just way too over the top. As a result, you end up with a movie that makes no effort to connect general audiences to any of the characters. To which I would normally say, this isn't for the general audience, this movie was made for the fans. But unfortunately, they're not gonna leave this movie happy anyway. I would wager a guess that 99% of people who really loved the comic loved it in large part because of the unique, vibrant art style. After all, graphic novels are a visual medium, and what do you know, so are movies. And this one right here is the perfect reminder of why VFX artists need to be given more time. Because this movie features some of the most egregious use of green screen I've seen in a modern blockbuster film. And the entire thing has this grey filter slapped on it, which contradicts the fun tone that the characters are trying to put onto the screen. So if you've never picked up a Supergirl comic, this movie isn't for you, and if you have picked up a Supergirl comic, this movie isn't for you either. If you're unfamiliar with the character, you'll be lost about an hour into the movie, and if you are familiar with the character, you'll spend the entire time mourning the comic book that they absolutely butchered. As I mentioned earlier, Millie Alcock is absolutely brilliant in the role, and David Corenswet as Superman, I mean, talk about a perfect casting. Jason Momoa also makes the leap from playing Aquaman to now playing Lobo. From a writing perspective, his character does not belong in the movie, but performance-wise, it's better than I expected. I really thought he would play it like Jason Momoa in face paint, but he truly does differentiate this character from Aquaman. So while a few of these actors truly put solid work onto the screen, it just isn't enough to power up the engine. No amount of charisma can fill up an empty, underdeveloped character. And even someone with the stature of Jason Momoa isn't quite big enough to cover the terrible green screen behind him. And the worst thing I can say about this movie is just how it zaps all of my excitement away from future DC projects. Cause if James Gunn truly believed this was the right next step to go so early into his universe, I'm questioning if he even belongs in the DC office. And if I had to guess right now, he'll probably be out by the end of next year, because this right here is putting down Morbius numbers. As for numbers, this one gets a 4 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for weekly TV and movie reviews. And if you've had the chance to watch Supergirl, hop in the comments and let us know what you thought about it. I'm Cinemike, and I'll see you next time.